We have a very big show today, so I'm going to bypass my usual monologue. Deborah Gianolis is here. It's the first time we've seen her since she lost that race to John Thrasher. Also, newly re-elected Republican Congressman Ander Crenshaw from Florida's 4th is here. And let's begin with Congressman Crenshaw. Thanks for coming in. I know it's a terribly busy time for you and everybody else in the U.S. Congress. Your initial reaction to the tax cut deal that the president worked out with the Republicans this week?
Well, if you look at that compromise, I think there's a little bit of something for everybody. And not everybody's happy. It's not a perfect deal. But for me, the number one priority was to say, look, on January 1, everybody's taxes are scheduled to go up. And I thought that was wrong. I think it's wrong to raise taxes when we're in a fragile economic recovery, when people don't have jobs. So I think that part of it, the president recognized that we don't want to see people's taxes go up on January 1. And I think that's the most important part. I would like to have seen that a permanent solution, but it's going to happen for 2 years. So on balance, I think it's probably as good a deal for everybody as we can get.
And of course, the other part of this deal is the extension of the unemployment benefits for the millions still out of work and who need this help. Without that being tied to the tax cut extension, would you be in favor, would you have been in favor of extending unemployment benefits?
You know, when you extend unemployment benefits for another 13 months, that costs about $14 billion. And that's pretty expensive. Right now, people can get up to 99 weeks of unemployment compensation. Most states only provide for up to 26 weeks, and then the federal government steps in for another year and a half. So, frankly, 2 years is a long time to get unemployment. And without some way to pay for that new unemployment compensation, I don't think I would be in favor. But if you put it together, that's maybe a part of the deal that I don't like a great deal, but if it helps make sure that nobody's taxes go up, then I can support it.
What about the estate tax provision of this? Basically, it lapsed last year, making 45% tax on estates, $3.5 million for individuals, $7 million for couples. This new deal includes a 35% cap for 5 million individuals, 10 million for couples. And I think most people hear those numbers and the people making that kind of money, do they deserve any sort of tax break at all?
Well, now remember the estate tax, after you work your entire life and you pay taxes your entire life, then when you die, the federal government says, I'm going to take 55% of that. Now this year, the estate tax was gone altogether. And that was part of these Bush tax cuts that were put in place in 2001, 2003. But in 2011, it's scheduled to go back to 55%. And I would one of those people that would like to say, I don't see why after you've paid taxes your whole life and you've worked your whole life, then when you die, the federal government could come in and take 55%. So for me to say we'll exempt the first $5 million and then only tax you 35%, I think is reasonable. I frankly would like to see the estate tax repealed because it really stops a lot of people from passing their small business or their farm along to their heirs. And so it's not a great source of revenue for the government, and I think it's not fair.
Congressman, it was interesting that as the president announced this deal this week, he very sort of subtly called the Republicans hostage takers. And it was funny because that didn't get a lot of play because the broader themes of the deal got all the attention. But his claim is that the Republican Party was holding hostage the millions of people who needed those unemployment benefits extended, but they would only release them in exchange for the tax cuts on the richest. How do you feel about that portrayal of that part of the tax deal?
Well, it's interesting because the president always said, I'm not going to raise taxes on people making less than $250,000. But if we don't do something, everybody's taxes are going to go up. So he knew that he wanted to make sure that at least the people making $250,000 or less, their taxes wouldn't go up. But he said, I don't mind raising taxes on people that make more than $250,000. And he still doesn't like that. But he said, if that will mean that the taxes don't go up on anybody, then I'm willing to make that deal. And frankly, when you make a compromise, generally you say, okay, I made the compromise, let's all get along. But he didn't do that. He said, I'm going to compromise, but I still don't like the fact that I have to give tax relief to rich people.
And I think we've seen why with the fallout in his own party. He has not been the most popular kid in class this week.
Well, it's almost like the House Democrats didn't quite get the message. 63 Democratic members of the House of Representatives lost their seats. That's the biggest loss in 75 years. And the people spoke, and they said, our message is, we don't want any more taxing. We don't want any more spending. And so what did the House Democrats do? They don't get the message. The president got the message. He said, people don't want their taxes to go up.
And the House Democrats tried to stop this from coming to the floor on Wednesday, I guess, yesterday, day before yesterday.
They voted in their conference. We interrupted the House schedule on Thursday. They went and had a conference, and they came out and said, we're not going to even bring up this tax compromise the way it is now. We don't like it. It evidently was a pretty contentious, people chanting things and calling the president names and saying, we don't like this deal, so we're not even going to bring it up. But I think when we go back next week, if the Senate does pass this compromise package, which I think they will do, then I think the House will too.
Very strange end to this 111th Congress. As you're talking about, 63 Democrats lost their seats. What's the mood like now in the United States Congress with all this new blood, with the head of steam that your party has going into the next year? Is it feel like a different place than a year ago?
Well, you know, we're in this lame duck session now, and that's what's really weird. We've got 63 Democrats that just got defeated in November. They're still sitting in their seats. They don't have offices because they've kicked them out of their offices because the new members are coming in, but they're still making policy. They're still voting on issues. And so it's like Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. They're still in charge, and they want to stay in charge until the end of the year. But when you have all these new people, not only do we have the 63 new Republicans that won races, there are about another 24 people that replaced existing. So we've got 87 new members. Now that is going to be an interesting situation. 87 new Republicans that are going to be part of our Republican conference.
And one more awkward week to get through. All right, let's pause there if we could, Congressman. When we come back, I want to talk about Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I also want to talk about the WikiLeaks. And we have some of your questions that you sent in. So buckle up for that one. We'll be right back with On Point. Back with Ander Crenshaw, Congressman from Florida's 4th. Let's do Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The Pentagon report is out. I think the last time I saw you, everybody was still waiting to see the official word. So now that you have seen the contents of that report, do you favor its repeal?
Well, I've said all along, and the last time we talked, that I think any kind of major change that the military makes ought to be embraced by the military leadership. And I know the report came out, but if you listen to General Amos, who's head of all the Marines, General Casey, head of the Army, the head of the Air Force, they've all said, we're not so sure that this is the right thing to do. And even if it is, this is probably not the right time to do it when we're engaged into a war. So the warfighter, the people that are there on the front lines, their leadership has said, this may not be the best thing to do. So I'm going to listen to them. And even though the report came out, and even though the Secretary of Defense says, well, we ought to do this now, I think that there's not any unanimity. And so I'm not in favor of repealing that until we really find out exactly what the men that are really on the front lines are feeling.
A man by the name of Julian Assange is probably the least popular guy in Washington right now, the head of WikiLeaks. Your initial reaction to this last batch of papers that have come out from them?
Well, it's just astounding that somebody would do that. It really it undermines our national security. It embarrasses us in front of the international community. So I think it's wrong. I mean, I think it's illegal, and I think that whoever's doing that ought to be prosecuted. But what bothers me, Shannon, even more, I think, is the fact that these records, these secret diplomatic papers, are so accessible. That somebody can just kind of steal them. And we got to look at our intelligence community and see how this kind of information can so easily be stolen and distributed to everybody.
Well, I think you get to the crux of it there. Is it Mr. Assange who is responsible and should be held at fault if there is any criminal charges to be filed here? Should they be on him, or should it be on whoever it is leaked those to him? Because as we've seen, there's precedent for this in the U.S. news media that, like the Pentagon Papers, things have been leaked out and published. So who is to be at fault here? And should Assange be brought to this country to face something?
Well, I think Assange ought to be prosecuted because he's got information that he knows is classified. He knows it's going to embarrass the U.S. He knows it's going to undermine our national security, and I think that's wrong.
Well, he's not an American, so
but still, but who cares? I think this is a global economy, a global world that we live in, and we can't go around just kind of dispersing secret documents. I mean, unfortunately, that's what spies try to do, and we've got somebody in the Army, some low-level Army lieutenant or whatever, who can hack in and get this information. That's, as you said, that's what really bothers me. He ought to be prosecuted as well.
If Assange is brought to the U.S. to face something, what charges do you think you should stick to him?
Well, I don't know exactly. I mean, I think the Attorney General is going to have to decide that. But I think, what he has done is to reveal that kind of information. I think that violates probably a series of United States laws.
Your colleague in the House, Representative Rangel, was just brought up for censure. Was that strong enough punishment for him, what he did?
I think so. That's as strong, when you censor a member of the House, that's as strong as punishment you can receive
before being
short
kicked
of
out.
being kicked out. And I think that was appropriate. There was an 8-to-1 vote in the Ethics Committee. They looked at that for 2 years, found that he had really done some things that are wrong, and I think he got a just punishment.
All right, a couple things. We have 2.5 minutes here, so want to get some of our viewer questions. This from a Josh Biggs. What's the status of Mayport getting a new carrier? Excuse me.
The status of Mayport getting a nuclear carrier hasn't changed. The Navy decided that. In fact, they decided that twice. We're on our way. They put the money in a 5-year plan. We're now in year 3. The dredging is under contract right now.
We're still on track.
Got you. Still on track.
Very good. Still on track. Let's see here. Oh, this is good. Fred Cole wants to know what's the fastest land animal. All right. We don't have to answer that one. Thank you, Fred. It's the cheetah, I believe. A Carrington writes, do you support or would you support legislation that prohibits housing and employment discrimination involving gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered individuals?
I think that's already against the law today to discriminate in that area in terms of housing.
First Coast Home Health Agencies facing deep cuts to reimbursement in January. Your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the problems we've got facing our country is the money that we spend on health care. And that health care bill that was passed, I think, was a disaster and really didn't solve the problem. So we're going to have to just look very closely at how we spend money at the federal level on health care and get a handle on that, because that's part of our deficit problem.
All right, and this is not from a viewer, this is me. You went to University of Florida Law School. What do you think about Urban Meyer stepping down?
Well, I went to the University of Georgia to undergraduate
That was
school.
the other part, right?
But so I have mixed emotions about that. But I think Urban Meyer was a great coach, did a great job with the University of Florida, and I think he's going to be missed. But I think, based on what I know about his personal situation, it sounds like he made the right decision.
I guess so. And Christmas plans, Congressman?
I'm going to be right here in Jacksonville with my wife, my 2 daughters, and my 2 granddaughters.
Away from the United States Congress.
As far away as I can get.
Well, it's great to see you. I wish you a very great, happy holiday season, and I hope you come back in the 112th Congress.
Anytime you invite me, I'll be here.
Thank you, sir, very much. Please stick around. We have Deborah